there is this deeper programming within society where people have decided that being loving is to keep your mouth shut. To be loving is not being direct. And when you're direct, you're mean. When you're direct, you're a bitch. Like that has been a deeper programming really on a larger level to keep us quiet, because you don't speak up against authority. You don't speak up against the bullshit you see, right? Because we don't want the patriarchy to crumble. That's really the deeper program that has been created. And so a lot of people, when they are met with a very direct energy, when someone is, I mean, quite simply, like this can occur if you're like, no, literally what happened? Like I got out of the car, I saw you, and then you handed me that. It could be like that logistic. People are so used to illusions. They're so used to lying to themselves. They're so used to being lied to. That's become the normalized vibration. And so to be met with something that is of truth is triggering.
Right. Well, and this is something I even touched on with the last person, or maybe it was the last interview before you, maybe two before you, but he's talking about how he has created like technological devices, through using like the astral realm to actually help people's bodies become in alignment with their true frequency, to take away all this distortion of technology and everything around us. And he says that that's in a sense triggering to people, because although this is your true nature, it's so foreign to you that you're like, this isn't comfortable. I got to get away. Like I'm out, like I'm done.
100%, right? Because it's like, I mean, we lean into what we're comfortable with. It's not necessarily what's for our highest and best, and that's the difficult part about like alignment work, or really, we can take something that sounds fluffy, like manifestation. Manifestation is about authenticity. Authenticity is about honoring your truth. And to honor your truth, you're going to have to get really real with yourself about all of those friends you're friends with just out of convenience. All of those friends you're friends with where you don't actually have anything in common, right? That relationship you're in that honestly isn't really serving you, but you're afraid that you're never going to find anything better, right? That job that you're in, that you're telling yourself, I can get by, it's not the best, but I'm fine. It's like, you hate it. Like your body is screaming at you, get out. And people are afraid to admit that to themselves because they're afraid to make a change. They're afraid to change, right? And so they're creating their own torture because they're choosing what feels like comfort right now, but big picture, like, is the most painful thing you can do, right? Because we're so afraid of releasing things, but releasing things is the only way to raise your frequency. The book I'm working on right now is about love and relationships. So the last book I channeled was about manifestation, and this is like the next one in that series. And it's about love and relationships and different types of like connections in relationship, soulmates, karmic soulmates, twin flames, like friendships. It's just like all about relationship. And I have been very curious, to see what's coming through. And the way I write these books is I basically do just 2 different weekends. And I channel it in those 2 weekends. And so I wrote half of it, channeled half of it last weekend, and then I'm going to finish it up in 2 weeks. So I have some time blocked off. And so I'm like actually right in the middle of this exploration. And whenever I'm going to bring something through, this has been true with the books. It's also very true for me with any courses I've created or just anything, that's going to be a big part of my life. I go through school. Where my entire reality recalibrates to learning the lessons, and I get sent people who are teaching me a lot of things about this that I'm experiencing in my own life, and I'm having clients come in. It's funny because I'll watch like the entire theme of my practice shift in alignment with whatever I know is coming, so this has been really on my mind and something I have really been exploring and feeling that like kind of back and forth energy as well. And I really believe it depends on where you're at vibrationally. And if you think about like how we meet each other, and if you think about like most people are moving through the world with this mask on around them, like with this facade. It's like, they use the example in the first book of like, you're a diamond, but you're just covered in dirt. You're covered in mud. And so nobody can like see how brightly you're shining, and that's dulling your signal. So it's making it harder for what's true for you to even see you or come to you, and us ourselves, it's like we have these masks on. These are the illusions, the lies we're telling ourselves about what we want, because we often limit ourselves. We decide to settle. Right? We decide that only this is possible. We are looking for something superficial. We think we know what we want, and we don't, because we haven't actually felt the frequency. The thing is, most people in relationship, sorry if it triggers you, but I believe this, most people, the general population, have not actually experienced real love. I look at people's friendships, I look at their relationships with their family, I look at their romantic relationships, and I'm like, is this commitment and obligation, or is this actually love? Like the divine definition of love. Is this lust? Is this I'm infatuated with you? Is this I'm committed to you? Like I'm like, if you actually look at what does it look like to show up with love, like divine love, unconditional love, most people do not relate to each other at that frequency. I'm talking from like a frequency perspective, you know? And so if you've never experienced that, and I know for myself, times where like I experienced divine love, it shifted everything for me. And I started comparing everything in my life to that frequency. Like I had never been met with that before, right? And I thought, holy shit, the things that I thought were love before are not. Oh my God, it's toxic. This thing that I thought was the best thing ever before is actually toxic. And it's, well, we're in this relationship. You're my friend. You're my partner. You're my whatever, family member. So you owe me this. No, I actually don't owe you anything, right? That's not unconditional love and unconditional forgiveness. And so we think we want something. Do we even really know what we're desiring? Have we experienced that vibration before? And a lot of people honestly haven't. But the point is, when you are two people coming together and you both have all of your masks up, we don't even know ourselves. We're not even emitting who we really are, right? And we are still caught up in the lies of who we're still in jobs that we don't like and other relationships we don't like. Like this is all just muddying the signal. It's all just adding more to this mask around us. And you come together, no one's seeing the truth of either person. So how can you know if it's a vibrational match? And so it's the people that have done the work and the self-exploration to move through those masks, right? And really like discover who am I really, and share that, amplify that out, where then it's like, okay, now I actually have an accurate perception. I can actually like show the world what my vibration is, who I am, and be seen in that way. And that's where I believe this thing about love at first sight, totally. But most people aren't meeting each other diamond to diamond. They're meeting each other mud to mud.
Well, and this comes back to the whole energy thing at the beginning of this, where, you know, we're talking about the energetics of a business, of, you know, a person, of whenever it gets blocked. And it really seems to me that you've kind of started viewing the world in this modality of energy, like keeping it moving in a sense, like not allowing it to block, making sure that it is flowing through you. And you know, maybe this is a point to go to a high energy healing. Cause I mean, how does that, you know, get into the mix of all this stuff? Cause it's not something I've ever heard of.
Yeah, of course you haven't. Cause I downloaded it. So it's like a me thing. And you know, the names don't really matter, I will say, but I do see the whole world from an energetic perspective. And I think anybody who talks to me kind of gets a sense of like, what is she talking about? Because, you know, I've always seen the world as energy fields, and I'm clairvoyant. And so when I'm seeing things, I'm just seeing like orbs and fields and things moving. Like that's how I understand the world. And what most people feel like is very woo, to me, it just feels like science of like, if I'm trying to direct water in a certain direction, I'm going to, you know, dig this hole, or like I'm going to make gravity work that way. And I'm going to like understand how gravity works, and then, you know, do things to make the water go that direction. It's the same thing with energy. And the natural state of the universe is it's movement. Energy moves. It's not like nothing's supposed to stay stuck, right? These things that we think are solid, it's just all of these vibrating, moving particles. Nature changes and moves. So anything that is stuck energetically, like that's resistance in itself. That's not the natural state of things. And I think there's a lot of value, you know, at least for me, of just like, how do I get out of that stuckness? That sense of direction makes you feel grounded and genuinely stabilized, right? It is the container that allows the feminine to flow within it, right? And so, for example, if I'm having a conversation with you and I'm holding space for you, I'm embodying my divine masculine when you feel safe to lean into me, when you feel safe to open up to me, right? Because you just know intuitively, I can lean in here. Right. And so I feel like for us to kind of just connect with that concept is really important of what that feels like. And a lot of the systems and structures that have been set up have been in the wounded masculine energy, the way a lot of us relate to each other and show up in our world. Hustle culture, go, 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 you know, controlling, competitive, you know, this or that, I'm better than you, there's not enough room to go around, scarcity mindset, that's all wounded masculine. And so it's not getting rid of masculine energy, it's bringing things back into balance and shifting from wounded masculine to divine, empowered, healthy, whatever you want to call it, masculine energy. And the same with the feminine, honestly, because a lot of our representations of feminine energy is wounded feminine. It's gullible, it's naive, it has poor boundaries. It's too floaty. That's not actually empowered feminine, right? The empowered feminine is powerful. It's intuitive. It's creative. It's the knowing where it's like, you're like, I just know with my full body. Like it's a force. It's the seed of all creation. So we need both of those in balance, and it's going to look like restructuring things to come from those energies. And so it's really more of a transmutation, the way that I see it. And you can see how, our relationship with all things that represent masculine energy is affected. So this is why so many people have money problems. Like we have really, as a society, people have like really unhealthy relationship with money. They're afraid of money. They don't trust money. Money is bad. What did money do to you? It's just a thing. It's just a thing. You're projecting your relationship to masculine energy, right? It's like, what's my relationship with supports? Well, on an intuitive level, we know that the structures that are meant to support us are fucked up, for lack of better language. Of course, I'm not going to trust. Of course, I'm going to have trust issues. I'm not going to trust other masculine energies, right? And this bleeds into our personal relationships, our relationship with money, and it leaves people feeling trapped.
So I'm curious about, and so this brings up an interesting point too, with going back to how you were saying there's like levels of permission when reading somebody. If I walk by someone and they make a certain face at me, I can tell if they're, maybe attracted to me, or if they are, happy to see me, or if they're angry, or if they're pissed off at the world and now they're projecting that at me. So that's like one level of abstraction of reading somebody. But then there's this extra level, like what you're talking about, where it's like actually kind of going into their psyche. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious in your mind where kind of that morality lies, right? Because I think we'd all agree that I'm very, like, there's no verbal communication that I need to read your facial or body language to see what you're trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like when you're not trying, like you're not like trying to get information, and it just naturally comes through, like that's energetically available. I mean, here's the thing, we're all picking up energetic information all the time. Like you walk into a room and you're like, wow, I could cut the tension with a knife, right? Like you feel it. Or you can be sitting next to somebody, you can like, I could just tell you're uncomfortable, right? So we're always exchanging that like information, just that's how it happens. But there are certain information that like energetic level are keeping close to ourselves, and somebody would have to like intentionally open up the door to get into, right? So it's sort of the difference between like anybody could walk by my house, but like there's a different type of person that's going to try and break through my front door. And it's the same thing with certain levels of information, right? So for me, for example, I've actually had intuitives like not be able to get in and read me at all, because I do a lot of work around like fortifying my field because I don't want people reading me. But there's a lot of stuff you could just like pick up because I'm putting out energy, right? Like you would probably feel, how am I feeling today? Like, yeah, this is what she really thinks about it. So I just find there are different layers to it. And even with certain clients, like sometimes I have clients who are like, can you please get to the root of this? Like what's showing up? And I'm like, they're literally like, I'm seeing you be like, you can't get in there. Like there's a piece of you that doesn't want me to see that. And I can't push my way past it, And so I think there's like, it's one thing to walk by someone and or be around someone and just something's like coming in without you trying, or you just know that. It's another thing for me to sit here and like try and access something, like try and get in there about something you're not telling me. So it's just honoring like free will and what's available, Yeah. That's how I see it.
I think towards the end, Isis was kind of giving these answers almost, and it wasn't like very well directed. But then I think Teal picked up on it, and she was like, these answers seem a little vague. And Isis responded with something along the lines of, well, you're asking me questions for the general populace as opposed to asking me questions for you. Mm-hmm. And that kind of ripped me apart in a sense, because in my mind, I was like, holy shit, it's like, if I want to change the world, I need to change myself. I need to fix myself to be the best person I want to be. The shadow side of that came into my thought line afterwards, where it's like, well, I want to help people get to this place of seeing the world through this lens, of doing the inner work, of healing. And there seems to be a little bit of a catch-22 that's occurring with me, at least right now, where, I am getting messages from people asking for help, and I want to help, and I'm trying my best to help. But the dilemma I'm running into is like, you know, I'm saying, hey, like, here's the course, here's the digital course, here's the program. But then it's like, you know, woe is me situation where now they're just constantly kind of, let's say, vomiting their negative energy towards
Mm-hmm.
me. And it's hitting me with this level of injuncture of, well, I'm taking on that negative energy. I don't want to expose myself to it, but I want to help.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like to you, I need to just set the intention at the beginning of the day to just not take on that energy. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I mean, it's setting the intention and like, you know, making a field basically, and like, I'm not available for this, but the action also follows that, you know, in what we are and aren't available for. And I have definitely been through that. It's the reason why I'm so clear with my boundaries for myself, because you know, when you're a coach, when you're a healer, when you're like somebody who's working with people, you know, or like with the podcast, you know, and you get a lot of messages and you hear people's stories. And, you know, I'm also working like closely with a lot of clients, and I've definitely had to really learn how to manage my own energy, because to take on everybody else's stuff or to try and fix everybody else's problems, like, I mean, I had mentioned this earlier in the podcast, but like the time I had to shut down my whole business and my whole life because of like my adrenals basically were burnt out, were because I didn't have boundaries there. And I was spending all day, every day, like answering messages and trying to hold space for people and like help them with their problems. And I was trying to help. And like in the process of doing that without boundaries, I couldn't help anybody because I had to shut down my whole life because I literally couldn't get out of bed. I had burnt myself out so hard. And so when I re-entered, I was like, I really have to be clear and like, we know what I'm available for. And, you know, it's not my job to like save everybody. And there's a certain level of, again, almost like, and I work with a lot of coaches on this, where like coaching isn't about fixing people's problems. Like you're reflecting, you're holding space. You're not trying, like what happens is a lot of coaches actually just create codependency. And then people, and a lot of therapists do this too, you know, it's
Right.
not intentional, but it's like, it just creates dependency. And that's not the point. You know, it's about helping somebody see that they have those answers within themselves. And a really simple example is most of my clients I work closely with will have like Voxer access to me, so they can message me whenever. And I'm just very clear, you know, my hours are Monday through Friday from 9 to 5, and I will respond within 24 to 48 hours. And if somebody sends me a message, I only let myself answer messages once a day. And if they respond immediately after, I don't reply. I wait 24 hours, because my boundary is, hey, I get to everybody and I will get to in 24 hours. And sometimes it's 48. I'm very clear with that. And that is a really important like thing on the client side, because guess what? Like somebody's not going to be available for you instantaneously all the time. And I can't tell you how often clients in the past have messaged me, I need you right now. Like, can you, like, I'm going through this thing. Like, I have to be here in 2 hours. And what do you think about this? And I literally don't see it, because it wasn't in my hour of when I'm answering messages. And they're freaking out, like, I need your help, I need your help. And I get to it the next morning, and I see that 5 hours later, they sent another message. Oh, never mind, I figured it out. Yeah, of course you did. Right? Because people immediately jump to help me. And it's like, but if you just sat with it for like a day, I bet you actually wouldn't even tell you anything. Right? You know, or like a lot of what people think are their thoughts are actually their clairaudience. It sounds like you. It sounds like your own voice, right? And so, like, I think, you know, if any of those videos are helpful for you, you can check those out, or anybody else, you know, but my point is just understand how those show up, because when you learn about them, you're going to realize, oh, I'm really clairsentient. Oh, I'm really clairvoyant. Like there's going to be one or two that really stick out to you. And then I would recommend focusing on working with that more and developing that more and going into it and just starting to play with that and ask information and tune into that sense specifically and develop that skill and really master that. And like over time, you know, others will kind of naturally open up, but it's just like with anything else, you know, you're always being guided and you just need to know one step, the next step, you know? And so instead of like, what people do is they'll be naturally really clairvoyant and I need to open up my clairaudience. And it's like, just get better at your clairvoyance, and like maybe then later the clairaudience will open up, you know. And so I think just lean into whatever's strongest for you and start using it. And it's like any muscle, it's not going to get built unless you use it. So if you're not taking 5 to 10 minutes a day to like ask questions, tune in, receive information, and work with that sense, I'm not surprised it's not opening up. You know, it's just like anything else. When I wanted to develop my gifts, I took time every single day to work with it. The same way if I want to learn how to shoot a free throw, I'm going to shoot a basketball every day. So it really is as simple as that.
Yeah, it's the whole practice makes perfect kind of thing. And the
Mm-hmm.
analogy that really opened my eyes to kind of what you're talking about, and you alluded to it, is the analogy of like, if you're trying to drive from New York to San Diego, you only need to see 200 feet in front of you and you can get there. You don't
Mm-hmm.
need to be able to visualize the entire road that takes you from New York to San Diego, right? And I don't know why, but that analogy just unlocked me like in so many different ways where it was like, holy shit, like, it's okay. Just see what the next step is. You can have this grandiose
Mm-hmm.
vision of making $10,000, making $100,000 in a month, but it's not that you are able to, it's not like you just wake up one morning and that happens. I mean, maybe for some people that do, if you get to that place, whatever, but it's like, what is the next step that I need to take to get to that, spot? What is it that I need to do to, like, what's the tweak I need to make in my podcast that unlocks the next level of viewership? What is the, you know what I mean? And so it's asking those, it's almost becoming in tune with asking the right questions that are going to be seeing 200 feet in front of your car.
100%. Whenever people try and plan too far ahead, it ends up messing it up anyway. Like, because energy shift, what you desire shifts as well as you're in that process. And I always tell people with manifestation, this is where it comes up. They're trying to understand, okay, this is what I want, and I'm not getting into any intuition about like how to get this. Like, how do I manifest this house, for example? I don't know, whatever. And they keep getting an intuitive nudge to go play guitar, and they're not listening to it. And I'm like, go play guitar. And they're like, no, but I'm trying to manifest the house. I'm like, but what if you go play guitar and then you run into somebody who's selling their house and it's the house you want, right? And so, like, intuition isn't linear. It doesn't make sense to the logical mind because it can see the whole picture. You don't need to worry about that. Just worry about step one. And it is very much like, okay, I do step one, complete. Now the door opens and now I can see step two, right? And then you rinse and repeat. But you don't get step 10 until you do step one, then two, then three, then four, then five. And people are waiting at step one for step 10 and they never move, And so this is where people hold themselves back really their whole lives, is they're waiting for step 10 and they haven't even done step one. And so you have to just focus on, whatever's coming through right now for you is really relevant because it is all connected, and it's like a big treasure hunt. You just go to the first place and that leads you to the next and then the next, and eventually you get to the treasure. But you have to be willing to, take that first step, even if it's in a direction that doesn't make sense to you.